from the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
The software is used by the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency. It has a lab at Offutt, one of just 2 in the world.
We're very proud of being here in Omaha.
Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, Cora software. Joining us to talk more about it is the creator, Sachin Pawskar. Dr. Pawskar is also a professor in the College of Information Science and Technology at UNO. Welcome and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Kathy.
You bet. I want to start with some basic terminology. How do you define a U.S. service member?
Kathy, the United States classifies a U.S. service member as anybody who is in the uniformed services. What that means is anybody who is there in the armed forces. That includes the U.S. Army, U.S. Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, as well as the Coast Guard.
Okay, and how many of those are MIA or missing in action?
It's sad to say that we still have about 81,700 soldiers and Marines who are still classified as POW-MIA. And we are working through this backlog, and the agency in charge of this backlog and accounting is DPAA, which is Defense POW-MIA Accounting Agency.
Okay. And up until recently, how was it that forensic pathologists identified their remains?
Excellent question, Kathy. It is an arduous task, to say the least. It's a very complicated process, especially because these remains are commingled. They are found in trenches, they are collected from cemeteries, and that makes the process of identifying the victims extremely difficult. Another challenge is the fact that we do not have DNA of soldiers who went into war prior to Operation Desert Storm. So identification requires other techniques which are part of the forensics anthropologist's toolkit. Previously, since the 1950s, a lot of the anthropologists have used paper and pen. And we still continue to use paper and pen today. The only thing that's changed is we have moved from a pencil to a pen. So you can see not a lot of changed. And as part of that, we're trying to kind of streamline the process. You'll notice that a lot of the inventorying and data capture is done on these long spreadsheets and forms. And you'll see there are multiple of these forms with lots of corrections as the anthropologists go about examining the skeleton remains and documenting their findings. This data is then taken and input into Excel spreadsheets. So it's almost like they're doing double work, right? So they're first jotting it down on a piece of paper, and then that is taken and input into an Excel spreadsheet. And you can see every human being has its own way of identifying what a right humerus is versus a left humerus. And you can find that you'll find a lot of data entry issues. You can see right is spelled different ways, is written down by every anthropologist in their own terminology. So one of the things that we had to do is create a common ontology first, and that was the beginning stages. So you can see it's a complicated process that they had to go through, and it was very laborious in terms of the data capture.
Wow, and the majority of that work being done or having been done in Hawaii, correct?
That is correct. Up until 2015, majority of the work was being done in Hawaii. It was only later, in 2015, the lab in Omaha, Offutt Air Force Base, was established. And as part of that, it was part of the Act of Congress in 2013, and additional funding was allocated, and in Omaha, another lab was established.
And why Omaha?
Excellent question, Kathy. Omaha was centrally located. Okay, the goal was really to identify a space that would on the U.S. mainland, so that we can actually leverage partnerships and the capacity that we have within the mainland. The DPA also wanted to have some place between Washington, D.C. and Hawaii, and they also had to find an airstrip. The airstrip was because they had to bring in and fly in the remains from these cemeteries, and that had to be done on military aircraft.
Wow, before we go any further, Dr. Powerscore, I think this would be a good time in our conversation to tell us a little bit about you, your background.
Thank you, Kathy. I am originally from Mumbai, India, which used to be called Bombay. I came here in 1994. I've worked in the industry for the past 25 plus years before I came here to UNO. I'm also proud to say that I'm a maverick. I studied at UNO. I did my master's in computer science, management information systems, MBA, and then I did a PhD in information technology. I am married to a girl from Norfolk, Nebraska, which is a couple of hours away from here in Madison County. Kelly is my wife's name, and I've got 2 children. My daughter, Siley, and my son, Sam. And Sam actually goes to UNO. He's also a maverick now.
Wow. And sometimes when we're doing these interviews and people listen to our guests talking, not only are you obviously have an extensive background, but you get kind of excited about what you do. Why did you choose this path?
I chose this path in terms of education. I chose this path because both my parents are educators. So I have always wanted to be an educator. It was only, I felt that after I earned my PhD, the timing was right, and everything just worked out. And there was an offer at UNO. I accepted the offer mainly because I still wanted to stay here in Omaha. And that was, my parents were a big influence on that.
Okay, talking today about Cora software. So at this stage of the interview, Doctor, what is important for us to know about Cora, starting with the acronym?
Okay, so Cora stands for Commingled Remains Analytics. Okay, and it's commingled because the bones are commingled. And analytics is because the objective of this software is to provide insights into meaningful information and knowledge for the forensics anthropologists to do their work. It is the forensic anthropologists who do the hard work, who do the difficult work. It is the DPA scientists who do the difficult work. Our job as part of Cora software is to empower them and make their jobs easier in terms of inventorying, in terms of searching, and in terms of getting meaningful information from the system. So if you look at Cora, Cora actually has a core database, which is a secure, encrypted data set, and it has an API which connects the data set to allow you to kind of interact with multiple systems within DPAA and external systems as well. And what we have put on top of this is a data exploration and discovery and visualization engine. And you can see that in the Cora Analytics engine. So a Cora Analytics engine allows you to do statistical information calculations. It has some machine learning and AI algorithms. And we have built some visualizations that make it easier for the analysts to visualize their data. The integration API is important because the software has to interact with internal systems within DPA's organizations. So it's a pretty complex system, and you can look at the architecture and tell it's pretty complex. So the goal of this is to kind of make the life of the anthropologist easier. So that's what this course is all about.
Okay, so you get this call from Dr. Damon Franklin at Offutt Air Force Base. So you're in the throes of your job here in Cora and all the rest, and you get this call. What's that call about?
So in the spring of 2016, we get this call from Dr. Damon, and there's a story behind that, Kathy, and I would like to share that with him. He does a better job of telling the story than I do, but I will try my best over here. So it so happens in the spring of 2016, Franklin, who had a 3-year-old daughter at that time, had to wake up in the middle of the night to change diapers and couldn't go back to sleep. So he picked up the Omaha World Herald newspaper, and in that there was an article about the College of Information Science and Technology, specifically about the MIS capstone program, in which we try to solve real-world problems and challenges. So Franklin thought that, hey, we have a complex problem here at DPAA. They were just starting this tremendous work on the USS Oklahoma project. And they were wondering, how are we going to deal with all these spreadsheets and this data? How do we kind of analyze? So why don't we just reach out and see if we can get some help? And that was the kind of the genesis of the initial conversation, how we got connected with Franklin and DPAA.
Wow. So another benefit, obviously, of being here in Omaha, right next to a university, and they can do that, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Now, he has a daughter. You mentioned she was 3 at the time.
She was 3 at the time. That's
and
right.
her name is?
Her name is Cora. Yes. So we kind of threw out a lot of acronyms during our conversations, and I know Franklin was initially hesitant, but we ended up on Cora, especially because Cora was the one who woke her up in the middle of the night that spring day in 2016, and made him reach out to us on that day.
Yeah, she was the inspiration.
She was the inspiration behind it, yeah.
All right, so we have some graphics we're going to put up for our viewers. USS Oklahoma, walk us through that. You mentioned it, so what was involved with that?
So USS Oklahoma was the battleship that went down in Pearl Harbor on that December 7th, 1941, the day of infamy, as everybody knows. And you can notice that there were you can notice the hull of the ship, and it's turtled over, and there were a lot of sailors and Marines who were trapped. There was tremendous efforts that were put in to try to rescue those sailors, but unfortunately, we still lost approximately 430 odd sailors and Marines that day. And on the picture to your right shows us U.S. Navy divers going down into the sunken ship and pulling out the remains. And you can see they're covered with oil residue from from the bombing and the capsizing of the ships that happened. They were able to recover remains from that ship later on. You'll notice that these are the remains that were collected and exhumed after the war was over, and the arduous process started by DPAA to make identifications. And this was they had a makeshift lab in one of the hangars over there in Hawaii, in Pearl Harbor, and you can see the forensics anthropologists over there, scientists sitting down and taking notes, and a lot of work then was done on paper, and that is what we wanted to change. We wanted to change and speed up the identification process. The USS Oklahoma, there were many iterations that they went through, several burials and disinterments and reinterments, and in 2015, when they started this project, these remains were there in 27 graves, a total of 63 caskets, which had 392 bundles. And each of these bundles could have anywhere from a few bones to hundreds of bones in them. There were a total of 13,016 specimens. And that just goes to show you the enormity of the challenge that faced the anthropologists.
Wow. Okay. So Dr. Franklin calls you, says we have this project going on and we really, really need your help. Put your heads together, and you have Cora. So walk us through. We have more graphics, visuals for our viewers to help out. What is this process entailing, Doctor? Just walk us through that, if you would.
Sure. So first, let me start off by we spent several months in the spring and summer of 2016 coming up with a core database architecture. And it was an extremely complex architecture, but the mission of DPA is unique. So we had to build a unique solution for their unique mission. So we spent the first 6 months, or the entire summer, 4 to 5 months, I traveled to Offutt Air Force Base. We kind of designed the system, and in fall, we started with the capstone program. And as part of that, you will see we've built an application which has a web interface, and there it is, which is a web interface that the anthropologist can access anytime and from anywhere. It has a project-wise inventorying of specimens. You can actually select the project that you're working on, and you can see that they now have several projects in the system based upon the success of the USS Oklahoma project. The DPA agency has decided that for any commingled remains going forward, they will use Cora due to the success. The screen in the middle kind of shows you how you inventory a specimen into the system. And here, you'll find on your far right how they record details for every specimen. So for every specimen, they try to create a biological profile. And the biological profile entails determination of age for that bone, sex, stature, and ancestry. And all of this information is recorded. We have information collected for DNA profiles. DPA sends some of these bones to a lab in Dover, Delaware. The lab is called AFDL. They also kind of record information on taphonomy, measurements, pathology, trauma, and so on. And here's an example of how they actually record all the measurements for specific bones or certain bones that are helpful in the calculation of the biological profile. So in this case, maybe you may use this for calculation the stature of a person, maybe, which is the height of the individual. And in some cases, certain bones are even important for establishing the sex of an individual from the remains. So the beauty of doing all of this, doing all this complex inventorying, is now you can have information at your fingertips. So previously, things that would take them a week to do, now it's done in minutes. So you can see they have something called as MNI, which is minimum number of individuals within a commingled set. Previously, that would take an anthropologist 2 to 3 days, maybe even a week, if it's a large enough project, to calculate. Now this is done in fractions of seconds. We have these amazing dashboards and user interface design that allows the project managers and project leads to discern information easily and quickly. And then we actually look at, once the inventorying is done, now you can take a look at the power of machine learning, AI, and graph theory. So here is an example where you'll find those green dots are really specimens, which are bones, individual bones. And you can see the clustering of some of these bones based upon certain properties. And these properties, or biological profiles if you want, allow you to say that these particular bones belong to one individual. And that's the beauty of the software. It allows you to kind of make these computations and the work of the anthropologist easy.
As you're talking through all of that, I'm thinking about the forensic, the people who are doing this, because as with so many industries, you have your people who were there before, and those same people are there after. And I can't even imagine how these professionals, these individuals, this is like night and day, doctor.
It is, and I have to commend the anthropologists, especially the USS Oklahoma project managers, Dr. Kerry Brown and Dr. Kerry Lagarde, and the entire staff at DPA here in Omaha, as well as in Hawaii, who have done tremendous job in providing input into making the software work for them. The software cannot work if the client or the user does not participate in the process of building and has the ownership of making it better. So there have been several iterations that we have gone through in terms of building the software. And what you're seeing now is a product of the several months of interactions and several nights of hard work that has been gone into this product over time.
So let's put this into some perspective then. Before the partnership, right, with Offutt Air Force Base, how are they doing in terms of the identification process? And now that we are a few years out, what's going on?
Excellent question, Kathy. So prior to 2015, DPA used to do identifications of about 75 to 85 identifications per year. So if I were to kind of put that into perspective, with the number of missing POWMI that we have today, it would take us 300 years to make all IDs. Now that is not an acceptable solution. That is not an acceptable answer to the families of our fallen soldiers and heroes. And that's why Congress has mandated the speed up in the work. And that's why the lab in Hawaii was formed. So now, come back after 2015, 2016, we have seen a steady increase in the number of identifications. 2016, we had 126. 2017, we had 186. 2019, we had 203 to 220 identifications. There was a little setback with COVID, but we have seen a steady progress in the number of IDs. And our goal is to at least reach a figure of 300 IDs per year. It's a complicated problem to solve, but DPA is hard at work at it, and our goal is to kind of help provide them the tools and the algorithms through Cora to make their job easier.
How on earth are you finding balance? It's a second job for you. You have the university, you have this, and this is ramping up to a point where I would imagine you feel maybe some days like you're on call 24/7 with it because there's just always something to be discovered. Talk about this second job and really how you are finding balance.
Kathy, yes, you're right. This is a second job to me. I'm extremely passionate about this project for many reasons. One is it's an opportunity for me to serve my country as a civilian. Second is I'm an immigrant, so it's doubly important for me to do work for my country. My wife tells me that I need to have screen time out just like with the kids do. So I know she's always she always finds me on the computer. So actually last year they instituted a screen time out for me for one day in a year. So I do work on it a lot, especially in the evenings, late nights, on my weekends, and all during summer. That is it's another job for me. It's a passion.
And it's going to be leading to other things. I wanted to ask, as we've got about 3 minutes left, what's next in this area? And that probably means what's next for you. Talk about all the possibilities.
Kathy, I'm really excited about the Cora ecosystem that we are putting together. One of the reasons I devote so much time on this project is because, yes, it's going to help the United States military. Yes, we are building all of these things to help identify lost service members. But the tools and techniques that we are building today are going to be applicable in other areas. So let me give you some examples. International Commission of the Red Cross, ICMP, which is International Commission on Missing Persons. These are all agencies that work on genocide, identification of genocide victims, victims of war in Iraq, in Syria, in Rwanda, in Poland, even from World War II. So several places, the tool set that we are developing are going to be applicable. This can also be used by local law enforcement agencies and the FBI in identification of missing persons. So we are now doing actually a project with the University of Milan in Italy. The two projects that we're working on, one is actually a tomb in the ruins in Rome, which has about 2 million specimens. And the other, which is really shows you a close application, which is the European Commission is working on identification of victims from a migrant ship that capsized in the Mediterranean in 2015. So people are finding out more about Cora, and I hope that we can share the learnings and the tool sets that have been developed in Cora, and that can benefit other parts of the world as well.
Talking with Dr. Pausker today about Cora software. We have 30 seconds. Final thoughts.
I'm really excited. I'm excited about the software. I really admire the DPA mission and the work that DPA folks do. I have to tell you, I've attended some family events that DPA holds, and when I've attended one, it's very emotional.
Yeah.
And I've had tears in my eyes hearing about the stories of when older people in their 60s and 70s talk about their grandmother, talking about Uncle Joe, who went to war and never came back, but there are these wonderful memories that they're passed down during Christmas dinners and Thanksgiving dinners, and to see them is amazing.
Dr. Pausker, thank you so much. Congratulations. Much continued success to you. Thanks for everything you're doing.
Thank you, Kathy.
You bet. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information and program archives can be found at nebraskapublicmedia.org/considerthis. If you'd like to share your comments about this program, call UNO Television at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours, or send an email to cwyatt@unomaha.edu.